Hello everyone, here's part 3 of my top 100 favorite horror movie list. Sorry for the delay because I had a lot going on this week. Number 59 of my top 100 favorite horror movie list is Beetlejuice from 1988. It was directed by Tim Burton. It was the second film he directed right after Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure. The movie's about a married couple that dies, they drown, they come back from the dead, but they're stuck in their house. A new family is about to move in the house and they don't like that idea. They try to scare them off, but nothing works. So they hire Beetlejuice to do the work, but unfortunately, he's not any better than what they were doing before. Michael Keaton is funny as Beetlejuice, but he's also crazy. It's a weird, funny comedy horror that really has no sense and logic to it, but it's so fun and entertaining. This is a film that definitely defines the kind of style Tim Burton does. Weird, gothic, mysterious, and creepy and strange. Definitely shows that this is a Tim Burton film. The stop motion effects are pretty awesome and cool, as if you were like watching something out of a bad nightmare. Number 58 in my top 100 favorite horror movie list is Predator and Predator 2. Awesome action sci-fi horror movies. First movie starts off as an action film, but then once the soldiers are in the jungle and they're being chased by an alien predator, then it becomes a horror sci-fi movie. Like aliens in the jungle. Arnold Schwarzenegger is awesome in this film. He has a lot of funny one-liners. Here I am going to try to do my best Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation. Get to the chopper! Stick around. Come on, kill me, I'm here, do it! Hope you guys like that. If not, then I did my best. Predator 2 gets a mixed reaction. It's a love-hate film. Honestly, I really enjoy it. I mean, maybe not as good as the first film. Instead of Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back for this film, we have Danny Glover as Harrigan. He's good in this movie, but I do miss Arnold, though. Arnold didn't come back for this film because he didn't like the script of this movie. Gary Busey plays an FBI agent that was supposed to be for Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's trying to track down these predators. The action scenes of this movie and the visuals are, like, spectacular. Like when you see the predator on top of the building, the lightning strikes, that is awesome. 57 on my top 100 favorite horror movie list is The Blob from 1958 and The Blob from 1988. I do love both movies of these, but if I had to choose, I'd probably pick the original over the remake because of the teenagers. They're the heroes and likable. It was very unusual for that time for teenagers to be heroes in movies at that time. The film stars a very young and unknown Steve McQueen at the time, despite that he plays a teenager in this film, and yet he was only 28. It's not his best film, but it was only his first starring role, so I give it a pass. What I like better about the Blob remake is the special effects. I thought they were more well done compared to the original. Also how Kevin Dillon, despite that he's a punk in the movie, but yet he's the hero. Number 56 on my top 100 favorite horror movie list is The Black Swan from 2010. Directed by Darren Aronofsky, if I'm saying his name right. Hopefully if I did. If not, let me know in the comments if I said it wrong. What I love about this movie is that I think this is probably Natalie Portman's best role ever. She does a great job playing a ballerina who wants to become a star and be a perfectionist on playing the Black Swan. But the movie also shows why being a perfectionist is not always a good thing, especially in the arts. It also shows the horrors and the downside of fame and stardom too fast. Also the horrors of and the dark side and the corruption behind the arts and entertainment business. The film is very well known for its famous lesbian scene with Mila Kunis and Natalie Portman. One of my favorite horror movies that came out in the past decade. 55 of my top 100 favorite horror movie lists are the Purge movies. I won't give too much details about each film, I'll just talk about each film briefly. The basic premise story of The Purge is that, due to an economic collapse, crime is legal for one night a year, that's what saved the economy. 55 of my top 100 favorite horror movies are the Purge movies. I won't give too much details, I'm only going to talk about each film briefly. The basic premise and the whole plot of The Purge goes, Due to an economic collapse, crime is legal for one night a year, and that's what saved the economy. This movie, when it came out, people were like freaking out and panicking, thinking, what if something like this could happen in real life? Before I talk about each film, I just want to say that these were films that I enjoyed, like, even though despite they were not the best thing, but I had like no problem like going back to see the new ones anytime they would come out. Because this series is like it's a hit or miss. It's either you like it or you don't like it, and I can see why not everybody enjoys the Purge films. Some people don't like it because of the fact that it can be just too political at times, and it can relate to like today's society, especially how we had like bad economic collapses in the past. Purge film came out in 2013, and it was okay. It's not bad. It's just your basic like home invasion type film. That's about it. Nothing special. It's average, okay. But surprisingly, the sequels got better. Anarchy from 2014. What I liked about this movie is that it was better than the first film, and it was a big improvement. I also like it how you have a character named Leo, played by Frank Grillo. Even though he was a guy that was purging, but you understand and sympathize that he wasn't purging for fun. He was purging to find the guy who killed his son. The Purge election year from 2016. I do like this movie, but I have like mixed opinions about it. Some things I did like, other things I didn't care for. The things I did like was that it was cool to see Frank Grillo's character come back. He's part of the reason why I kept coming back to this series. I like it how we see that he's a bodyguard for Elizabeth Mitchell's character, who plays a senator who wants to end the Purge because her family was killed on Purge night. What I also like about this film is the visuals are just spectacular and cool. Like when you see like these two women in a van that are passing the Lincoln Memorial, it says "Hell" written in blood. Now that is awesome and really like just cool. Things I didn't like about this movie is that this movie came out the year when Trump won the election against Hillary Clinton, and it was kind of mocking the election. It was kind of like a little annoying because back when this came out, everywhere you went and things that you just could not escape the conversation of Trump versus Hillary. The most ridiculous and lame writing ever is when this teenage girl wanted to kill a store clerk for a candy bar she tried to steal early. Lame, and it's like an 8-year-old wrote that part. It's a good movie. It's a solid follow-up, but not as good as Anarchy. Purge from 2018. What I like about this movie is that it explains why the Purge happened and how it became to be. I also like the character Dimitri, despite that he's a drug dealer, and yet he's the hero of the film. Number 54 on my top 100 favorite horror movie list is From Dusk Till Dawn, directed by Robert Rodriguez. Despite the title, the vampires don't even show up until 1 hour into the film. It starts off as two gangsters who kidnap a family so they can cross the border to Mexico. They go to a titty twister bar, and that's where the vampires show up. It's the kind of film that goes from like one subgenre to another. Even though George Clooney's character is the bad guy and a thug, but yet once they're trapped at the titty twister bar with vampires around them, he ends up becoming the hero, protecting the family. The looks are pretty cool and creepy. Not only did Quentin Tarantino star in the film, but he also wrote the film. But unfortunately, his acting in this film is not really that good. He's a talented director and a talented writer, but his acting has just never really been that good. He's never really been known for his acting that well. Even though his acting's not that good in this film, but he's a sick pervert who fantasizes about having sex with Julia Lewis's character. He's funny and cool and a badass in this movie. Vampires don't show up until later in the film, but it's actually kind of worth it because it gives you the time to know like these characters very well. Number 53 on my top 100 favorite horror movie list is Brain Dead, aka Dead Alive, directed by Peter Jackson before he was a very famous director for directing the Lord of the Rings films. One of the goriest films ever made. This is it. This is probably one of the most gore films you'll ever watch, right up there with Evil Dead. The film is also very funny. There's a scene that I like where the main character goes to the cemetery and these two thugs come out of nowhere and are trying to hurt him. And the priest comes out saying, "I kick ass for the Lord." Every time I watch this movie, I ask myself, how much money did it cost for all this fake blood? 52, my top 100 favorite horror movie list is Creepshow from 1982. It's an anthology horror film based off the EC comic books. This film does a great job paying tribute to those comics as if the comic came to life. The few horror films that George Romero directed that was not a zombie film. Feeney did the special effects and Stephen King wrote the film. This is a horror fan's fantasy and dream come true. Having famous favorite horror icon directors and writers collaborate in special effects in one movie. It's funny and over the top. It has a lot of sick, twisted humor and great cliffhanger endings. Stories, but I'm not going to go into details and talk about them in this video because in the future I plan on doing a collaboration with a friend of mine to review this movie, and on my channel I'm going to go solo on it and talk about the stories. I'll say, out of all the 5 stories in Creepshow, my 3 favorite stories in the film were The Crate, When It Tied You Over, Up on You. I think were the best stories, in my opinion, of the movie. Today makes you think, whatever happened to good anthology horror movies like this? One of my top 100 favorite horror movie list is House of Wax from 1953 and The Mystery of the Wax Museum from 1933. And no, I am not including Paris Hilton's 2005 remake. That movie was a piece of crap and garbage. Mystery of the Wax Museum, it's actually a really good movie, and it was very sophisticated for the time when it came out back in 1933. I saw the 1953 Vincent Price version before I saw the 1933 film. 1933 is one of the earliest films to be shot in color for its time. The Wax Museum is about Lionel Atwill plays Ivan Igor, a sculptor who owns the Wax Museum. He has a very fascination making sculptures out of people in a wax museum as if they were like realistic, as if they were like real people. Burns down the museum for insurance money. He reopens another wax museum, but he pretends to be disabled to make her into one of his statues for the museum. Porter who finds clues and evidence, knowing that Yvonne was the kidnapper. Best part of this film, she's actually the highlight of this movie. She has a Lois Lane type personality, even though despite Superman comic books did not exist around this time. Even though Ivan Igor, Lionel Atwill's character, is a bad guy, but when you think about it, he's misunderstood because all he wanted was revenge on the guy who burned down his museum. House of Wax film with Vincent Price. It's the same format as the last film. Price does a great job in this film, and he was a great choice. I found him to be a lot more brutal, evil, and ruthless compared to Lionel Atwill's character in Mystery of the Wax Museum. Gothic atmosphere, too. Like seeing Vincent Price's character in the dark shadows without his mask on and his ugly face and the hat. Kind of reminds me of like Jekyll and Hyde, German Expression Gothic atmosphere. To the original and the 1953 remake. Skip the 2005 film. That film was crap. On my top 100 favorite horror movie list is Trick or Treat from 2007. I mean, it may not be the first Halloween film. I mean, even though Halloween was a Halloween film, but Halloween was a slasher film. This film is like more true and dedicated to the mythology and the real true story behind what Halloween is all about. In recent years, the film did not come out in the theaters, which I'm not sure why. It was released to DVD right away. Horror film with different stories that connect. Michael Dougherty, as you all know, would go on to direct Krampus, another horror movie. And he also recently did the new Godzilla film that came out last year. Top 100 favorite horror movie list is The Orphan, and whoa. Even though there have been a lot of child scary actors in movies, but boy, I have never been freaked out and so scared of a child in a horror movie. This is one of the scariest child actors in a horror movie, just in my opinion. It came out, I saw this in recent years. I remember when the film came out, it was controversial because of one scene where the stepdaughter is trying to seduce the stepfather. That was considered disturbing among fans. Think twice before adopting a kid. Of adoption, and also how sad and depressing it is when a mother loses her child at childbirth. Negative impact on a mother whose child was barely born and would not know what that child would grow up to be. 100 favorite horror movie list is Child's Play from 1988. Even if you never saw the Child's Play movie, everybody knows who Chucky is just by seeing a picture of him. As a kid growing up, I remember being too scared and afraid to see the Chucky movies because I was just afraid of the idea that the killing doll was going to kill me. Ray uses voodoo to transport himself into a doll. He gets a good guy doll from his mother on his birthday, and the doll is Chucky, a killing doll. Tina. To me, to this day, I still refuse to buy a Chucky doll. Top 100 favorite horror movie list is Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer from 1990. This is a real sick, twisted, messed up movie. He just got out of prison for murdering his mother. He works as an exterminator, but then when he's not working his job, he goes around killing people for no apparent reason. You can tell by his facial expressions that despite that he kills people, but yet you get this sense that he feels bad and guilty, but at the same time he can't stop what he does because he has a mental problem. But at the same time, it's just something he cannot stop doing. A spoiler alert, and if you've not seen the movie yet, I recommend skip this part and go to the next list on my favorite horror movies. And it's also very sick and disturbing for what I'm about to reveal. Disturbing things I've ever watched in a movie in my life is when Henry and his roommate Otis are sitting down watching TV and they are watching themselves kill their victims. It is so sick, twisted, and disturbing. Top 100 favorite horror movie list is The Dead Zone from 1983, directed by David Cronenberg. This was probably one of the first few times David Cronenberg ever focused on a character in a story because his other films were more on special effects. He plays Johnny Smith. He's just your basic average everyday person. He's a teacher, he has a girlfriend he's about to marry. But one night, he gets into a car accident and is in a coma for a few years. A few years later, he wakes up from the coma and he finds out that he has these psychic abilities. Best performances ever. You sympathize with his character because you realize that just because he has psychic abilities does not mean that he enjoys what he has. He doesn't see it as a gift, he sees it more as a curse. He just wants to be a regular, normal person, not famous. 100 favorite horror movie list is The Others from 2001. It's about a mother and her children that move into a house off the English coast. About what happened to her husband because they have a rare photosensitivity disease. Ghost in the house, and Grace thinks it's a joke and a prank, but there really is something supernatural going on here. One, and I remember when the film was being marketed, I was too scared and afraid to go see it in the theaters. Well done at the right time. See coming. It's not even that old to be remade. Leave it alone. Favorite horror movie list is An American Werewolf in London from 1981, directed by comedian director John Landis. It's about two Americans that are on vacation in London, and it goes bad when a werewolf kills his friend and the other one survives. Werewolf. Transformation Wolfman scenes ever in a film. This was made today by CGI. This movie won an Academy Award for Best Special Effects, all thanks to legendary Rick Baker. Your horror movie list is Night of the Creeps. The way I describe this film, it's like Revenge of the Nerds meets Animal House / The Blob. If you keep a scorecard, a lot of the characters' last names are all named after famous horror directors. Tom Atkins is awesome and funny in this film. He has a lot of funny one-cheesy liners that make no sense. My list of all time is Audition. This is a real sick, twisted, messed up Japanese horror movie. Favorite horror movies of all time is Audition from 1999. This is a real sick, twisted, messed up Japanese horror movie. Who lost his wife years earlier, and years later he wants to date and get remarried at some point. So he sets up a fake audition for a fake movie to find the perfect woman for him. Right for him, and who seems nice and normal, but unfortunately, there's something not right about her. To him. Horror movie list is Jurassic Park from 1993, directed by Steven Spielberg. It's about dinosaur diggers who go to an island and they find that dinosaurs have been brought back to life. But then everything goes wrong with Mother Nature and brings something back that's been extinct for a long time for a good reason. Done right, and when it's really necessary to use CGI. Adding melodrama in his movies. Favorite horror movie list is The Strangers from 2008. This was probably my favorite horror movie the last 12 years. What I loved about it, that it was again another realistic type of horror. There was no rhyme or reason why these strangers were after this couple for no apparent reason. That's what makes it scary. In a situation if for no apparent reason that someone would not stop knocking on your door and was trying to kill you for no reason. Liv Tyler's in the kitchen all by herself. Her boyfriend went somewhere. She smokes a cigarette, and the stranger is right behind her, but he doesn't really do anything. He looks at her, and that was that's a definitive moment where we always felt that way if we were alone, thinking, is somebody right behind us? Anytime I've been alone by myself, I always think about that scene. It's just so scary and horrifying to think that. Every night before I go to bed, I always make sure the doors are locked. That shows how this film really horrified me.